This episode of the Party Loaded podcast is proudly sponsored by Audible.com. Check out their awesome catalogue of audiobooks with over 180,000 titles to choose from. And be sure to grab a free audiobook on us and support the show by visiting audibletrial.com/endgame.
Let's party.
Hey everybody, it is Party Loaded episode 93. Welcome to this Wednesday evening of video game chat and fun and frolicking and all sorts of good stuff beginning with the letter F. My name is Luke Retallick. That does not begin with an F. And the two loaded ladies do not also begin with Fs, but Jam probably has a bunch of Fs that she doesn't keep in her mouth during recording. Hi Jam,
See,
how you
this
going?
is why I wanted to vet your intro.
I know you always want to vet my intros, but
Like,
they
what
are
the
such
hell?
an organic thing. They just happen. That's what you get.
Oh, that doesn't make it right.
Welcome back, Mimo.
Thank you, Luke.
So Mimo has
It's like I was never gone.
evolved into her final form over the break, I believe. So we've got new challenges.
So was Christian, so I hear. So no more Shadow Mimo. He's now full Christian.
Yeah,
Christian.
absolutely.
So now I'm like fighting for space.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm
sure.
like the runt.
Well, we could do a contest based on the prowess of our computing rigs, and then after the weekend, you'll pretty much win that hands down, I suspect. So you got some fun stuff coming up. Maybe, yeah. Ollie is not with us tonight because he is in his own words, a perpetual snot factory. So instead, we've got someone who's a lot more clean and wholesome to join us. Welcoming back one of our favourite guests on the show, the lovely Vee Pendergrast from Stirfire Studios. Welcome back, Vee.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm not a perpetual snot factory, and $10 says that my rigs will win because I'll just go into work and nick some.
That's true.
That's
They
cheating.
definitely win.
Yeah, that's super cheating. That is totally not allowed. Unless, of course, we can all play games on them
Just
too, and then
saying.
that's totally allowed. So that's all good. Yeah. Nice. Well, anyway, V is sort of fresh back from Gamescom fun and goodness, so we thought it'd be a perfect opportunity to have me completely outnumbered by the ladies tonight and talk all sorts of fun game stuff. So let's do that. We got plenty of things to get through. But yeah, Mimo, do you want to just very, very quickly kick off and just do a wrap up of your last couple of weeks? Just sort of say, you know, what fun you've been having and where you're at. And yeah, congratulations on finishing your studies, by the way. Well done.
Thanks.
Quick round of applause.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I finished them. Don't know if I passed them yet, so we all have to wait
you
another
passed
3
them.
weeks for that.
Yeah,
So-
that's next month Mimo's problem, you know.
Yeah, exactly, precisely. And then I might turn into a crazy person if I have to do all that again.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, finished. So I have a master's qualification, potentially, which is kind of exciting. And the only thing I did other than that was play an awful lot of Hearthstone to distract myself from playing games. And when I wasn't playing Hearthstone, I've been entirely obsessed with Life Below Zero on Netflix, which is a BBC documentary about people living subsistence in Alaska, and I cannot stop watching it.
I was just about to say sounds cool, but that's probably obvious. So nice. I've never heard of that
Nice pun.
one. Yeah. Sorry.
Why do I keep coming back to the podcast for the quality of the gags?
Why do I keep putting up with this
Yeah.
cold shoulder that all of our guests are giving me?
Why do
Anyway,
I keep coming back?
why do you
I
keep
just
coming
got
back
it.
down?
Oh god.
You gave him more food. You gave him more fodder for puns. Don't do it.
All right. Anyway, so yeah, cool. So things are all sort of settled down nicely now. A little bit back to normal as far as stress levels go, except for like all of the new challenges that you've thrown yourself into. So that's cool. Yeah, but as I alluded to during the intro too, you have a bit of a present to celebrate that you've given yourself, which is arriving this weekend. So do you want to quickly?
Oh, that's what you
mention that?
wanted me to talk about.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I see. Yeah, I ordered my new PC. So as mentioned on the podcast many, many, many times before, my setup is like a potato Frankenstein version of lots of different elements that I've either had or borrowed or been given by other people. So last weekend I ordered the beast, and she will be beautiful. And I pick her up on Friday, potentially Saturday, and get to play some games on a PC that is actually worthy of quite a lot of the games that we play. So get to go back and play GTA 5. I get to play No Man's Sky. I get to play our party game of the month in high definition, and stop playing Overwatch like a flipbook, which the person at the computer store that we ordered the computer for found very funny. So,
Yeah. But we still love laptop. We don't mean anything.
We still love the potato. Please don't die mid-podcast.
Please.
Yes, please just last, for a couple more days. But yes, I'm very excited. It's, even though I've got, the consoles and they're really nice and everything, we do spend so much time PC gaming, and so it is nice to just know that if it's an issue, it's, a weird gremlin software issue. It's not a hardware or a limitation issue. So
Yeah.
that'll be exciting. And it's going to kick the pants out of your guys' rigs. So
yeah.
That's not even a contest. Let's just not even go there. No. But anyway, speaking of sort of raw computing power and all the sorts of fun games that can entail, Vee, you just got back from probably the biggest convention of said computer power and games fun that we know of outside of E3. And no, that probably just outside of E3. And this is a whole other scale from what you've been telling us.
Sorry, it's actually biggest in the world.
There you go.
It is literally the biggest gaming convention in the world. So, yeah.
Nice. And, obviously that's been sort of keeping you busy over the last week or so, but you've also been pretty busy in general with Stirfire as of late. So before we jump into the Gamescom chat, should we just do a quick roundup of where things have been at since the last time we had you on chatting about Symphony of the Machine earlier in the year? So what's your adventure been like in 2017? Give us all the juicy detail.
So Symphony launched in April now, and that's just a distant memory in many ways. There's an update planned for deployment sometime. I'll let you know when that actually happens because I have no idea. It's all a bit of a blur at the moment. We're doing so much stuff at once. It's actually difficult to keep track of because we've got our IPO in play at the moment, which if you don't know what that is, that means that you take your company to the stock market and you say, give me money. And then hopefully that strategy works. And so I'm working through that at the moment. We've raised a few million. We need to actually raise a few $1 million more. But so I'm walking around rattling the tin, and I don't think I've been home much in the last month and a half because of that. We've issued a prospectus, and because we issued a prospectus, our next project is actually public knowledge now. It's called Keep Flying. It's a roguelike airship RPG. So,
oh my
yes.
God.
And so Symphony was exploring what the world of VR looks like from several different angles, and from a business perspective as well as a creative perspective, and trying to create a game that could only inhabit in VR. This is let's literally get this on every device that we can possibly do. So let's cram it on there and go for it, because this time around we just want to make something where we get a nice big audience, and we actually wanted to go. This one's going full community. Let's make a thing where as many people can engage as possible, because VR is kind of a obviously you've got to have the devices ready to go and to do that, whereas this is let's go hit as many consoles as we can and as many devices. I think the only thing we're just avoiding at this stage is phones.
Oh, wow.
So yeah,
wow.
So there's a lot of stuff in the works with that one, and that's a really cool project to work on as well, because I took it with me to Gamescom because I went mainly to the business area, and the feedback has just been very, very positive indeed. So it's good to have that at this early stage. The art is just beautiful. We only ever make beautiful games. It's one of our tenants as a studio. But it's really nice. Getting the feedback. That's one of those things that just keeps me going throughout all of this, is when people go, hey, that's super cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So there's that one. We do have another VR project in the background as well, but that one's going to take, we need to get some vendor interest in that. So I'm teeing up. I met with a friend from Sony Europe while I was there, and he had a few ideas, but I'm also going to try and tee up a meeting with Oculus now.
Very cool. Nice.
Cool.
So I also don't want to gloss over the fact that just in regards to the capital raising and the IPO launch, Stirfire, to best of my knowledge, and you can correct me on this detail, but I'm pretty sure that you're actually the first games company based in Australia that has ever launched on the stock market. Is that accurate?
Semi-accurate. So a company called iCandy, which they're a mobile games provider, they launched in 2015.
Yeah.
So they were, as far as I can tell, and I'm always going to put the caveat on it that it's as far as I know, they were actually the first games company to list in Australia. But my understanding was that they were a subsidiary of a company that started in Singapore and Malaysia. So in terms of Australian-owned, as far as I know, this is the first one. All of our investors, the majority of our investors so far are all based in Australia as well. So there's that, and that's a kind of cool thing to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And considering that we came out of Perth, which in terms of gaming, the games industry in Australia is still a backwater. So it's a pretty cool place to be. I hope it all works.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think we can be a backwater for too much longer because there's been some pretty spectacular stuff coming out of Perth this year, which will continue. And we've got one launching tomorrow as well, I believe, which hoping to talk about in the near future. But yeah, it's very, very cool. I think as far as our home city is concerned, this year has really been the changeover. So, this is the first time since I've been in the industry for the last 8 years that we saw two polished, professional-looking games with really deep content launch within 30 days of each other. And that was Paradigm and Symphony of the Machine earlier on in the year. And, of course, Battlestar Galactica Deadlock. And my hat goes off to the Black Lab Games people because they've just made this thing happen. And they've got the best 3D modeler on the state working on it. It's just going to be amazing. Nice. Yeah, I was looking at a little bit of the detail on that today and discovered that one of their voice actresses is actually Erika Ishii from Geek and Sundry. So a couple of names popping up that are familiar. So there you go. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. Anyway, enough of that stuff. We're here to talk about you and your fun adventures. So Gamescom. Let's just, for people who don't know heaps about Gamescom, and I think there's probably less of those by the day because it's becoming more and more sort of in the public eye every time I sort of hear about it. What could we do to sort of give people an idea of what the size and scale and purpose of this event is compared to, say, your E3s and your PAXs of the world? So using that as a baseline, how would you sort of describe Gamescom?
So my basic way that I would describe it is I believe it was somewhere between 400 and 500,000 people over the week.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh.
Which is just, we're Australians, so we're familiar with PAX Oz. And when you're looking at those numbers compared to PAX Oz, it's just staggering.
Yeah.
The Kohlmesse, which is, I'm going to horribly butcher the German pronunciation on some of these names. Sorry. The centre itself is the size of a reasonable sized suburb of our wonderful hometown of Perth. Mm-hmm. It is it's in Cologne in Germany, Corn to the locals, and it is, the scale is just massive. You get, the only other trade show that I can really compare it to is if you know PAX Oz, so it's effectively like the expo area of PAX Oz, times that by about 20.
Gosh,
and that you're getting probably, that's maybe halfway. It is just simply staggering in scale. You could play a round of golf in the PlayStation stand.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I was going to say, surely someone's got a full racetrack in there or something.
Exaggeration, but you get the point. Oh, there are cars everywhere. Every single car game has a car. There's a collection of McLarens and Maseratis and God knows what going on.
That's right. Project Cars was there. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, it is. Ubisoft have a huge enclosure. Nintendo have a big one. Xbox have a big one. All the big names have these gargantuan areas. There's full stadium seatings for esports. It is very much an expo area. It's not like there's no tabletop area or anything like that. It's all pure expo, but it is quite. And the other thing too that I wasn't prepared for was the verticality of it all, because everything is so physically massive and it just goes up. So the screens are just gargantuan.
Yeah.
Wow.
And is the audience consumer, or is it a mix of both, or is it industry? Where did it start off?
So there's two areas. There's the consumer area, which is the main area, and then there's a business-to-business area, B2B for short. And that's where I spent most of my time because, of course, I'm hunting around looking for deals, arranging meetings with vendors and publishers and looking what I can get out of that. I did go into the consumer area on the Tuesday, which is actually a business-only day. But even then, the queues were still large. That was mainly business and press. And even then, there was about 20,000 people there that day. It was still pretty busy. The other thing that I'll mention, because I love my indie, and as an indie dev myself, and the indie area is again pretty massive. So it's not just the AAAs that have got all the space. The indie area is alive, well, and present. But yeah, so there's a good mix of things there, and I mean there's restaurants in there, and full blown rest areas, everything like that. I would say as well, and if you've been to a PAX, you know a little bit about what the sensory input for that feels like, where you're getting you're getting bombarded by lights, noise, music, constant. It's huge. I would say that the sensory input from Gamescom easily eclipses that too. I actually found myself needing to, even just walking around the consumer area for half a day, I needed to get out and take breaks from time to time.
Yeah, it wouldn't be good for anyone who's a bit claustrophobic or crowd shy. That sounds like a nightmare for people like that. No.
And the other thing too is, I mean, I was walking through the crowds on sort of Wednesday, Thursday, and it's just like nothing you've ever seen before. Unless you've seen that, unless you've been to it or you've been to something with a similar number of people, I can't really give you something to compare it to.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I've heard a bit about the focus of the event being a lot more software driven rather than a mix of software and hardware that you see at some of the other shows. Would that be accurate to your mind?
There were, I mean, obviously Sony, Nintendo and Microsoft were all there pushing hardware. There were places, there's plenty of hardware the bases that I went through, I saw enough hardware going on. Mm-hmm. It's really the hardware tends to be, you've got the console vendors obviously pushing their wares. They're obviously driving a mix of software and hardware. I mean, one of the huge focuses of the PlayStation area was FIFA. Mm-hmm. So, there's that, but they will obviously try and push, like PSVR was still a large focus for them. I would say that other vendors, there's some really high, like your high-end PC vendors were pushing hardware as well. So that was not, I did see enough of that I didn't sort of go, it's all 100% software.
Yeah. It's interesting looking at the major sort of company listing on the exhibitors list and comparing that to some of the other shows. Given the size, it seems a bit strange to me that some of the other bigger players aren't coming out in more force. Like the Sony presence, I'm sure the scale of it was quite large, but compared to maybe some of the other companies, it looks like it was considerably smaller. And that may be partly because they've got their own show sort of coming up later in the year and other reasons like that. But I'm just wondering, do you know why some of the other companies aren't taking Gamescom a bit more seriously and putting more of their efforts towards that each year? Is there kind of like a commercial reason why that makes sense, or?
Well, the whole reason for Gamescom, and I actually had this discussion with another person in the Australian industry when I was there, is like, you are competing in this huge arena for the public mind. And why would you go there? If you have your own show, then sure, there's a separate whole different platform with which to promote. Keep in mind that this is very much a European show, so it depends on what your focus looks like there. The other thing that I would say is that it depends on what releases you got coming up in the next 3 months as well, because this is heading into the Christmas AAA season. Yeah. So a lot of those AAA vendors were out to make some pretty big statements. Ubisoft was in force. They've got a slate of stuff. Obviously, Nintendo were there with force. Total War, the latest, the new Warhammer one was there, and they had a full-size Skaven Doom wheel there.
Wow.
The Shadows of Mordor, I think it is, the new thing that's going on there, that was there in this colossal exhibit, and there's some fabulous photos of Australian game devs riding their dragon around, just because who likes a good selfie with a dragon?
Nice. I'd get a selfie with a full-scale loot box from that game. That'd be a cool thing. Anyway.
Yeah. So there was no, like, I mean, there would perhaps some notable absences, but they would probably be the ones that would have their own show. Whereas these ones were all the ones who are looking at grabbing the front of mind for the next 3 to 4 months, or just heading up into the Christmas period, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, and spreading it around. Like, if you had everything there, I can imagine you sort of start detracting from some of the smaller ones, or you start detracting from VR, or you start detracting from... So maybe it was more of a strategic choice about what they did choose to put there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the focus. Yeah, and it's all part of a wider strategy with all that PR and marketing as to who turns up to those things, because the cost again would be staggering.
Yeah, I bet.
I mean, some companies seem to be taking it a lot more seriously than others. I mean, Blizzard's probably a good example because they're virtually treating it like their second BlizzCon these days. You know, having an early sort of wave of announcements and releases, and then following that up a couple of months later, sort of when they do their big event. But I thought it was an interesting question because it just seems a bit haphazard how it compares with some of the other devs. But I mean, the Europe focus is something that we don't get to see a lot of. We're kind of distanced from that. I think a lot of the media that we get in terms of the games industry is very US centric a lot of the time. So yeah. It's good.
I mean, you can't forget that the European market is colossal as well. I mean, you've got the spread from people obviously turning up from the United Kingdom right through and deep into Russia. So, and there are people, like, particularly in the business to business area. I mean, there were, like, Australia was about the only one that didn't have a pavilion. Germany, obviously, they have different regional pavilions. All the different UK companies were there. All the different, like, there was plenty of different, like, pavilions with different smaller companies from each different place. China was there, even Chile was there. So, and of course they're looking to put their presences in there from a business perspective as well, because everybody's obviously looking for their share of the press and all that. One of the things that surprised me was EA had a whole section of the B2B area by themselves. And that was pretty much, it seemed to be press focused. I would be surprised if they would let a small indie dev like myself go and have a gawk around. But that seemed to be by appointment only. Yeah, there was certainly enough stuff going on there.
I was going to ask you about the sort of indie dev scene in Germany, whether you actually got much chance to sort of familiarise with that. I mean, sort of contacts with any of the various different studios over there, and what your take on the scene in Germany is. Is it something that you have enough knowledge about to kind of contrast with what we know in Australia? Is there anything they're distinctly good at that is like a point of difference that you can speak to? How does that look?
They're good at putting on beers. They're really good at putting on beers. So in the B2B area, which again being where I spent most of my time, they had, like, all the different regions had their own spots. Like, there was Bavaria over here, and that's what's over there, and then they basically have all their indie devs in those sorts of pavilions. So of course their presence was quite large. Because I ended up staying out of town, I didn't get a chance to go to any parties. Which is a blessing and a curse in many ways. But it seemed from where I was standing to be pretty huge. I mean, the simple fact being is that you can walk around Cologne that week and go out and go out to a cafe or whatever, and you look over and the person next to you is wearing a Twitch t-shirt, so you strike up a conversation, and they might be German, they might be from somewhere else. So there's a plenty big indie scene there. Australia, obviously, I mean, we had probably 16 companies go over, I believe, plus the GDAA, the Game Developers Association here. Mm-hmm. So, so next year, I mean, we've all basically said, hey, we need our own pavilion.
I was about to say, where was Australia?
It was all kind of, like, Australia was kind of last minute in the way that it was all organised. So there was that. And again, that's a blessing and a curse as well, because a pavilion will anchor you down for the week. Whereas it gives you a meeting place and a place where everyone knows you'll be, but it does anchor you down. Whereas, I spent my time talking to vendors and publishers and hardware people and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. You just need to set up a magician's booth and get Yug turning tricks all week. That's a good way to attract the crowd.
I actually got him to do card tricks on the Saturday, like the Saturday after we'd finished and everything, because we were all having a chill out day. So that I went around, I was like in a tourist shop. I was out buying presents for my family, and I saw there was a pack of cards there, so I grabbed it. And when next time we sat down for beers, I threw it in front of him, and he started. It was like, "Do the tricks now, Yug."
Surely he carries that with him everywhere he goes.
No, he doesn't, and I wasn't allowed to video him either. So I'm kind of sorry about that.
Never reveal the secrets. What's the sort of... I mean, I know we talk a lot about... we obviously, on the show especially, talk a lot about PAX and the vibe, and then it's just nice that it's nice to hang out with lots of like-minded people. Given that it's got like a heavy sort of like business-to-business focus as well as consumer, what's it sort of like whilst you're there? I mean, you come at it from a perspective of, you see someone in a Twitch shirt and you strike up a conversation because you're obviously in the industry. But if you were just there as a consumer, do you feel like they would have the same experience?
All right, there's two different answers to that question, really. Okay, so from a B2B perspective, it's better than anything I've ever seen. Like, it's simply just the largest thing. Everyone's there in the business area to go and do business. And that's the thing. And I mean, it's still the game industry, so it's still fun and friendly because, you don't know who you're going to end up working with in the future, right? So most people will... Like, you might end up working on a collaboration project, or you might end up working with a different publisher thing, or you might be a third party outsourced to somebody. So you're going for friendly. And I mean, the other thing too, and I don't think that I can quite convey this strongly enough, is that street drinking is a massive thing over there. Oh.
It's Europe.
It's just part of the landscape. It's just it's so common, and it's just part of the thing. Is like, the beers come out at lunchtime in the business area, and of course everybody stands around and chats and mingles. So from that aspect, that's very different to PAX Australia. So with PAX, you've got like, from a business perspective, you're going there for the press and the vendors and the content creators as your first priority, and then consumer relations and testing is probably your second priority. So because of course it's not like a small expense, particularly in proportion to the size of, if you're an indie studio, you're still going to manage those costs. So from B2B, that's the angle. From a consumer perspective, it's all expo. So it's like, if PAX Oz, then it's all 100% expo. There's no board game area or free play zone or or bring your own PC or things like the diversity lounge and the chill out areas and all that just aren't there. So it is very much that vein of things. You're there, so I was talking to Yug about it, and it's a very different flavor in the show. I'm not going to say one's better than the other, but the focus is probably the focus is very much on the expo area with Gamescom, whereas the focus of PAX is very much about that player experience and giving the players those sorts of options.
I imagine even the areas they give you to rest, there'll be an ad somewhere, sort of like that Black Mirror episode where everywhere you go there's like an ad or something that you have to view. That's what I'm sort of picturing in my head when you're talking about sensory overload. All business. Yeah.
It's just one of those things. The B2B area was the quieter area, obviously, because it's not jam-packed full of consumers. I would say the other thing too is the quality of the cosplay was about the best I've ever seen.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you've got the world's best cosplayers are there. So yeah.
Super sweet.
Oh, that would have been cool.
Well, that dovetails into the next question I had for you pretty neatly. So, obviously, as a nerdy gamer type, and obviously as a industry professional type, there must be some pretty spectacular things that you saw that stood out. So, from both angles, what was the coolest thing you saw? So, both as a consumer and as a business sort of person.
So there's a Melbourne producer of he works very much in the audio side of games, and his name's he's going to kill me for this. His name's Fabian Malabello. He's a former Perthy, and he looks like a big friendly metal guy. But there's a photo flying around of him riding on the back of a dragon, pulling a heavy metal sign while wearing a Star Wars T-shirt.
I've seen this photo.
It is the single best photo I've ever been taken ever.
It's metal as fuck. It's great.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so that was the single, like in terms of the single greatest spectacle. I mean, I was impressed by the Skaven Doomwheel. I think that was a big thing. Yeah, look, in terms of spectacle, it's very difficult. There was just so much.
Did you manage to catch Moss while you were there by Polyarch?
No, I did not. Actually, I tell you what, there was one, like I went through the indie area on the Tuesday. So there's a game that I just went, like, every little show, because I love my indie, because that's where I come from. And I saw a game called, I'm spinning it up now, Far Lone Sails. So Far space Lone Sails. I saw that, and it's like, that is the game, that's the game from this show that I want to play. I just want to get that, and so when I've got time, that's the thing. I'm just going to go and sink myself into that for a while.
Interesting.
I'm going to look at it.
Yeah.
Me too.
And again, it's like, it's a little indie thing. So it's just one of those gems that you walk through and you come out with something.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually going to ask you if there was anything else that you can point us at that maybe sort of got missed by the mass media out there. Anything that sort of diamonds in the rough kind of stuff. But that's a good one to check out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that one I really, that was like, that is my jam. I'm down with that. The look of the game was really personally resonated with me quite a lot. It's actually quite kind of surprising going around the world to see it, but Orwell, which is published by Surprise Attack, that's another one I'm gonna actually spend some time with when I have some time.
Oh gosh, that game.
Yeah, I know it's going to be it's going to mess my brain up, but I like when I've got some time, I'm going to sit with that one for a while.
Yeah, Mimo and I played that late last year, and I think recently they just announced there was going to be a sequel being made.
Yeah. It's one of those things like you miss, because with indie, like they don't have the lifespan like where it goes up and goes down like a AAA. Like they often have a longer lifespan because of course they don't get the press and they don't get those things. So you get that sort of that bubble that keeps on going. Yeah, there's all that, and I had a brief chat with Matt Trobiani who did Hacknet, and so I was talking about him with what he's got going on next, and yeah, there's some exciting stuff there that's coming back.
Yeah, and then you had your long trip home and getting back to normal and, trying to process all of the cool stuff that you've seen. Have you gotten over the jet lag yet? Is that a thing? You sort of...
No. Sleep is a luxury right now. I'm getting there, but it was still, from Australia, from Perth, it was, I spent probably 28 hours in transit, I think, to get there and back.
Jesus. Yeah.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, it wasn't, that was not probably the most pleasant thing about the whole experience. I would say just quietly, if you can avoid Munich airport, then do so. It was perhaps not the most fun thing that I had to deal with. The other thing too, I would say, is if you do want to go to Gamescom, book super early, because the hotels and everything are going to be priced at a premium, just in Cologne in general, but especially close to the centre. So it can't hurt to get as early as you can. It's going to be priced like that.
Is it the sort of show that tickets are in sort of short supply, or are they always going to be able to release more passes to sort of open that to the masses? Do you know?
I had to go in and get I had a B2B ticket, so I had to go and get that quite quickly. Like as soon as I knew that I was going, it was pretty much jump on that day and go and get the tickets. I would say that the tickets, I've got no idea from a consumer perspective whether they run out or not. But just the only thing I will say is just, again, go back to the numbers, which are just, out of control, is huge. I would say that the crowd control moving about the premises was actually quite, that was really efficient and doing that, because again, having to deal with that many people they'd have to have particular methods of dealing with that. Also, again, if you're going to go, then certain strategies like giving yourself plenty of time if you're coming in via public transport, because the trains will be clogged. There's a fleet of taxis waiting outside and all that, but everybody will price at a premium to get there, because again, it's such a popular show.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds super impressive. I would love to go one day. That would be definitely a bucket list item for me. Very, very cool.
It makes me interested to see it, also tiny bit terrified about something on that scale. But
Exactly.
It kind of puts you in your place as a country somewhat, doesn't it?
it sure does.
I would say, like, again, I'm not saying, I can't say whether whether like having it wholly focused around Expo is exactly what my idea of a fun show is, because I'm kind of again, I like the whole community aspect of the thing. I would say that the city itself is actually the most fun bit that surrounds that, because the other thing too is you come out of the show and the city of Cologne is just buzzing with, there's Gamescom people everywhere, and and there's a lot of fun stuff that goes on around the event as well.
It's kind of how I imagine, obviously this is a larger scale, but how PAX Prime would be in terms of like the whole of Seattle. So now PAX West, but like the whole of Seattle sort of turns out for it. Like all of the blocks around the convention center are converted, and the hotels and everything are all PAX related and gaming related. And so that would be really cool on that scale in a place like Cologne.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, reading about Gen Con over in Indianapolis, I get a very similar vibe from hearing about that one as well. Like, it just sort of themes, like the whole city just cosplays as a nerd convention, essentially, rather than just the hole that it's in. So
something that was funny when going through immigration was that basically it was like, when I got through and you go, so what are you here for? I'm here for Gamescom. I'm here for the week, and then I'm going home. And then they're like, okay, sure, stamp. There you go. It's right through. Because they know, because everybody, there's a lot of other people coming in for it at that time. So yeah, that was the whole.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. Well, we wanted to, kick in with a little bit of news this week. We're not a huge amount to cover, but, because there is some Gamescom-related stuff that we can capture while we're on the topic, might be a good opportunity to do that. So there were a bunch of different reveals sort of throughout the show as far as the main commercial stuff goes. Ladies, is there anything in particular that caught your eye that was really of interest to you? I know there was one in particular that caught yours, Mimo. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Age of Empires 4 was announced, and the internet went nuts. So I can't even begin to imagine what it would have been like to be in the crowd at Gamescom when that trailer started playing. It certainly was not something that I was expecting. The Forgotten Empires are releasing the definitive edition of Age of Empires in just over a month. And so as soon as Age of Empires came up on my newsfeed, I thought, more about the definitive edition, blah, blah, blah. And then I saw the number 4 after it. And it's been nearly a decade or just over a decade since they last made a game of Age of Empires. So that's super exciting. It's going to be made by Relic, which is the next part that everyone went nuts for, because Relic, if you don't know, are the same studio who made the Warhammer 40,000 RTS, as well as Company of Heroes, which is not something that I've ever played, but I do know that it's pretty big in the genre. And they did, that's both of those franchises they made were multi-iteration games for various things. I don't know. Did you play the Warhammer 40,000 stuff, Luke?
Yeah.
Vee?
Played heaps of it. I think I chatted to Vee about it a number of years ago as well. Like back when Relic was THQ in Australia was handling that stuff.
Yeah. I played the early stuff. I kind of lost a little bit of interest with it, but yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's all really promising. No details at all, other than the fact we got a couple of screenshots of lots of different actual ages. So it looks like it will be sort of progressive, and obviously it looks quite beautiful. But no details. Release 2018. So, yeah, I don't know. I wasn't expecting that at all. I don't know if I just haven't had my ear to the ground in terms of RTS releases and I just missed it, but I certainly was not expecting that. That came way out of the blue for me, which is fairly rare. Sometimes you hear you'll usually hear whispers of these things before they sort of come up and get the expectations. Did you get the buzz for it whilst you were over there, Vee?
Yeah, I saw there was plenty of Age of Empires stuff up, and there was an Age of Empires party on the Tuesday night. So because the 20th anniversary was all going on, so that would obviously been part of the whole deal. So yeah,
toga party. And then halfway through the party, you have to transition to a different age. That's how it works. That would have been cool.
Yeah.
Planning those events, those parties at big cons like that would be so cool. That
Yeah,
would
they're
be-
pretty full on. Yeah.
That's the dream. One day.
Yeah, there's a lot of and there's a lot of industry parties, and the other thing too is like you see the party on the night before, and if you didn't go to it and you happen to be walking around the next day and talking to some people that did, there's a lot of dead looking faces the next day.
Yeah.
Where were you last night? Age of Empires.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I was excited for Definitive Edition, so I'm super pumped. So if you're an RTS fan, I'm sure I will keep you updated if we hear a release date on that. That's really cool. That's really cool. And other than that, for me, it was just Moss, because out of Gamescom was a lot of people getting hands-on into the game, as well as must have been at Gen Con as well. I don't know, but a whole bunch of stuff got released, and we've got a couple of sort of 10-minute playthroughs now, and it looks so good. It is every inch the game that I'm hoping it is. And I just saw that they will have merch available to buy at PAX West, which will be a limited run, which is just nuts for a game we don't even have a release date for yet. People are going mental just to buy a poster of Little Quill. And you can pat the mouse. Oh my gosh.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Life goal for Mimo.
Yeah, if you didn't listen to the episode where I talked about Moss when it was revealed at E3, it is a PSVR game that is coming up, developed by Stirfire Studios. Not a huge team, from what I can understand, but they have a little mouse in this game named Quill, and she is just the cutest little thing. And she is adventuring, and you are sort of an omnipotent being, and you assist her in puzzles, sort of with VR. You also control her. So you move her through a 3D platform type environment, and then you use your VR capacities to look around and to solve puzzles, so that then you can guide Quill through. Very, very preliminary stages, and like I said, that 10 minutes is probably sort of like the most sort of polished section I expect of the game, but it will drive me to PSVR. It's such an amazing use of VR, and I can't wait.
Yeah.
I will buy PSVR just for this game.
You didn't buy one just for my game? Jesus.
I've played a lot of your game. Sorry, Vee.
I'd say we had to go out of our way to
what I
find
mean?
other ways to do
when
that.
you're talking about when I talk about PSVR, a lot of what I have been seeing has been experiences, and this is the first game where I feel like, other than obviously Symphony of the Machine, because that is the chill out moment, but I don't want to play Doom in VR. That's just my idea of a nightmare. What I would love to do is, surprise, surprise, play a puzzle game in VR with a tiny, adorable mouse companion. That'll be really cool. But, I am hoping, and I did tweet that hopefully we can see them at PAX Oz, because they have been at some other PAXs, but I know that that's a bit of a long shot, especially if they're a particularly small group of people, because that's a long way to travel between quite a lot of US conventions. But, you got to put it out there if you want these things. So, and they liked my tweet, so maybe they're hopeful to get here too. I don't know.
That would be very cool.
That's where you're going to find me, is just in the queue for Moss, all of PAX Oz, if that happens. Or if Critical Role turn up, then, I don't know, you're going to have to split Nemo in half.
Well, maybe, you know what I really, really do want to play in VR? Doom, because it's going to be like a nightmare in VR.
Oh, hell no. No. Gross.
But anyway,
No, thank you.
segueing from the whole mouse thing, one other thing which I thought stood out across the announcements was a certain little new animated short featuring a little mouse in the opening scene, sort of scurrying over a little box that opens up and turns into a Hearthstone Disney short, basically. So yeah,
Oh no.
He's
going to talk about Hearthstone.
Yeah,
He's going to talk about Hearthstone.
Oh, come on. You ladies saw it as well. And I know that you...
Okay,
pretty
it was
glorious.
pretty good. Damn it.
No, it was cool. So apparently they have a new character that they've added to the lineup by the name of Ava. So a young girl who's featured pretty heavily in that clip, sort of playing the game. Don't know what they're going to do with that in the future. It's obviously not something they can ever make a card of, but... having like a mascot for the game that sort of exists outside of the game is something that's kind of intriguing. So we'll see what comes of that. And yeah, Blizzard had a bunch of other things sort of happening that week. They had a new animated short for May in Overwatch, which was also pretty good. Like, that was a super serious
Made
one.
me cry.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I swear last week I saw more Overwatch t-shirts than I have in my entire life.
I'm not surprised.
Oh, really?
I was
Wow.
just like every second person had an Overwatch t-shirt. It's one of those things.
Yeah. I'd imagine it featured pretty heavily with the cosplay as well.
Yeah, was the Overwatch World Championships, was that not on over in Europe around Gamescom
You're
as
asking
well?
asking probably
Yeah,
the wrong
maybe.
person for that.
Maybe.
But the other thing, like, how much from last week was how much Destiny 2 was out. Like,
Oh,
there's so much Destiny 2.
The hype.
The hype is so real.
Yeah.
It is palpable. I just mentioned Destiny in the office today, and someone poked their head up and went, "Do you talk about Destiny?" So-
I'm pretty sure I committed to buying 2 copies today.
Yeah.
Oh, Jane.
It has been a pretty hot
mean-
topic for all of us.
The
Yeah,
PC
PC.
beta's out today, isn't it? Yeah. So
Yeah, I'm hearing amazing things, but I can't wait that 4 months. So I'm gonna have to get it. Well, I already have pre-ordered it on PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
So yay!
Yeah.
Wonder if I can share characters across platforms. But probably
Yeah.
not.
We'll find
Initial
out soon.
reports are that the PC beta looks spectacular.
Yeah.
So, if you have the battle station to run it, is the common thread though. If you have the equipment to run it on Ultra, then it's going to look very pretty.
Oh, I wish.
Well, I know that V works with a couple of big Destiny fans at Stirfire, who I've added to
Oh,
my
God,
friends list
they-
recently. So
they literally have not shut up about it. So like, it's like get back to work and they're talking Destiny. Oh God, I'm going again. So which more convention can I go to now?
Have they booked
Still
leave?
talking about this? Yeah.
Are they taking Wednesday off?
Yeah, like New Zealand game developer conventions on soon. I'm going to go there.
Just leave the country until it's over.
yeah. But yeah, no, aside from that, I think there wasn't any other big ones that popped out at me. There was a Shenmue 3 trailer that finally sort of saw the light of day, which has had pretty mixed reactions. And that still to date, I think, is the largest Kickstarter video game that's ever happened. Even bigger for the initial funding than Star Citizen, because that earned most of its money after the Kickstarter wrapped up. So, yeah,
Yep.
be interesting to see how that finally turns out.
Yeah, I think there was only one other thing I wanted to mention from the Gamescom side of things, and that was that Shadow of Argus in World of Warcraft went live in patch 7.3, which is the final raid, which is pretty big. For any expansion, the final raid is pretty big for WoW fans. And I think that it is sort of in line. It makes sense of Blizzard have that big presence at Gamescom you were talking about, Luke, and you were kind of surprised since they have BlizzCon coming up, but they can't delay something like that to be around BlizzCon because people are traveling for BlizzCon. So it is kind of cool for them to have something like Gamescom in the lead up. So it doesn't really surprise me that they're releasing all of this big content at that stage, because then they clear the stage for, new IP and new expansions and stuff.
Absolutely. I would not be surprised that all of the next WoW expansion gets released or sort of, talked about at least at BlizzCon. Because I'm kind of surprised they didn't do it at Gamescom, actually, because they originally announced...
Never.
What's our current expansion? The
Legion.
Legion. Yeah, they actually announced Legion at Gamescom a couple of years ago. So
Did they really?
Yeah.
I was about to say I would have thought they would have saved that news, but maybe they announced it and then had more reveals.
That's pretty much
at
it.
BlizzCon.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an old 1-2.
Yes.
Like they sort of suck you in, come to BlizzCon,
Sell tickets.
boom.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly right.
this is the thing that's
Well,
happening.
I really liked. I liked the Minecraft Xbox. Not that I need another Xbox, but I want the controllers. I want a
Yeah,
pink
the pink
controller and a
controller
creepy
is
controller.
so cute.
Oh, adorable. What a good idea.
Oh dear.
We're so stereotypical.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have our favourite flavours and we stick to them. Yeah. Anyway, that's a bunch of cool stuff. And, we're heading into the thick of it this next sort of chapter in the year, because we're just hitting AAA season starting very, very shortly. So Destiny 2 next week is probably going to be the big first round in the chamber that fires, and then everything just keeps coming after that. So... But yeah, no, it's
Hey,
been good.
I've got a little one. Sorry, I got a little one that you might have missed. Local Perth devs, Byte Sprite, they've been to PAX Oz the past few years. Yes, the they're off to Tokyo Game Show fairly soon with this as well. So Bramble Ash is launching on Steam on the 13th of September.
Hey.
Oh,
And, I mean,
yay!
so they've like it. So this one's been a few years in development, and so like I mean I've been in the background sort of prodding them to get this thing out. So it's launching on Steam. Then I know they're going to PlayStation and Xbox after. Being a small team, it's one of those things where launching on multiple platforms at any one time is fraught with difficulty. But I'm happy for them that they've finally got this one out the door. It's going to be really cool.
Yeah, I've played that a bunch
and it's
of
a
shows.
great little game. And if you just want to, it's a cool party game. So if you've got 4 people and you just want, the way that it's played, where it's like that co-op thing, but then you turn around and then stab your opponent. It's you stab your opponent, then your teammate, then your opponent again. It's a great little game. So I'm
So
really
pretty
hopeful.
too.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah,
pretty.
that's fantastic.
And I'm glad for them that they've got it. Like, this one's been a while in the making. I'm glad they've got it out.
Yeah, definitely a long time coming. For
Yeah,
sure,
we played that 2 years ago at Perth Games Festival, I think, Jam and I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the
Looks
first
really
time I'd
cool.
seen it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Nice. Well, anyway, Vee, I know that you can't stick around with us all night, unfortunately, but I want to thank you very much for coming on and chatting about your cool adventures over at Gamescom. That's a whole bunch of awesome stuff to aspire to hopefully getting over to one day.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah, that's no problem. I apologize once again for my crap Skype podcast skills, but you know.
Oh, that's all on Skype. That's not on you.
And maybe by the time we get to Gamescom, we can go visit the Stirfire in the Australian podium. What do you reckon?
Oh, you just exploded my brain there. All right.
Sorry, one thing at a time. One thing at a time.
No. Vee does not operate with one thing at a time. That's not a thing that happens. Nice. All right. Was there anything you just quickly wanted to point people to before you disappear? Any sort of links or stuff to recent happenings?
Aside from going to stirfire.net, because I've got a nice new website, so that's nice. And I have a prospectus, I have an IPO, so if you're someone that wants to invest in the Australian games industry, that's a very practical way that you can do it. So that's my big plug at the moment.
Nice.
In terms of games, that's all in coming soon territory. So Keep Flying is in very early is in pre-production right now. There's a prototype that's there, and that we'll likely see more of that next year. So
absolutely,
that's what I got.
Yeah, you got to get on board that. Create some legacy. Help to support games development in Australia for sure. Awesome. Well, anyway, thanks again, Vee, and have a good sleep and good luck firing up all cylinders tomorrow for the next onslaught.
Oh, jet lag is not my friend. Good night.
Good night, Vee.
Night.
Night.
Oh, well, before we sort of wrap the show up, we do have to talk about what sort of stuff we've been playing over the last week, and there has been a bit. So, Memo, let's throw it to you first because you've had the most time sort of between episodes. What have you got squeezed in over the last week or so?
Well, just over the last week, so after I finished all of the everything else, I actually got my hands on playing Mario Kart 8 on the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I can report that it is awesome. So a friend of mine has the Switch, which was really cool, and had the opportunity on Saturday night to give it a go. It's got so many different cups compared to some of the other versions. It's got a Hyrule cup, Luke.
Ah.
And you can play as Zelda all the way through Mario Kart once you unlock.
This must be new content.
It's got characters. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is Mario Kart 8, and they also have Splatoon in there as well as Animal Crossing.
Oh, there you go.
So it's really cool. They have a tournament cup which is based on the N64 version as well, which is really cool. So it's got all the themes and stuff. So because N64 was kind of a big version of Mario Kart, a very popular version of Mario Kart, sort of paying homage to that. It's really cool. Some of the new weapons are really neat. They've got the Splatoon squid in there. So they've got like an oil, a squid splash, but it's still the Mario squid, which is kind of neat. And everything else. Playing on the tiny little Switch controllers was a little bit of an adjustment, especially since we were playing sort of like whoever, because there was only 2 controllers. I didn't get to play the full 4-player version, and I don't know, the screen would have been just way too small. But swapping the controllers, because they are differently oriented as well. So you go from sort of having your thumbs mostly on the left-hand side of this tiny controller to mostly on the right.
Yeah.
And you kind of, it's fairly intuitive. Like, it's certainly something that when you don't have to think about it, like if you gave it to a child, they would just do it because their muscle memory is that button equals go, that button equals stop. But for me, I was like, so Y equals right, okay, wait, and kind of had to sort of figure out what was going on. But, you get there in the end. A little bit of thumb cramp because it's a little bit tiny, but it was really cool. It was very, very party game oriented, especially passing around these little Joy-Cons. So, neato. It's very exciting, and it sort of more endears me towards the Switch for the upcoming Mario Odyssey game, though.
Yeah.
I am waiting till PAX till I see that.
My boys have Mario
Other
Kart
than-
8, and they've played a bunch of that, but it's on Wii U, so I was actually curious about the differences, because I'm pretty sure there's no Hyrule Cup in that one, but I could be wrong. So
Really?
Yeah.
Or maybe I haven't unlocked it. I don't know.
Don't know. They've unlocked a lot of stuff with
It's
that game.
definitely there.
Is it? Okay. Well, maybe I'm.
Yeah, it's
maybe I'm
definitely
blind.
there. So, and you can customize all the carts and stuff, and yeah, it's mania. It's really, really cool. And it's nice to see they haven't moved too far away from the sort of formula.
Yeah.
But other than that, we checked out Mello's new patch went live 1.9, which had a bunch of new stuff around the rot and the banes and the evil parts of the world.
This is my favourite patch by far. By far.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, it would be pretty close to mine, but only because it seemed to have fixed a lot of stuff. There was sort of a big update with the Fury mode and everything else, and there was a lot that wasn't 100% there, and we were sort of getting some glitchy stuff in a couple of those sort of minor patches that came through, so 1.9 kind of seemed to have put a lid on a lot of those so far. But it's really cool. Can confirm I do not like the new sound of the Banes. It is, like, cool. It's an awesome sound. But they sound so terrifying. The sound in this game has just gone from it's chalk and cheese compared to when I first started playing this game to what it is now. The quality of the game is far out. And these new cards that have come out, the new spells, have just hit the mark. You've got another board-changing card, Spirit Seeds, which we played the other night, and it looked super cool. And also Fury Fridays, which I don't kind of understand 100%. But, I guess they're trying to sort of encourage more people back into the game and sort of minimise the length of some of the games as well.
I think it's just a platform for them to run sort of regular events. That's all it is. So
yeah, but do you have to elect it, or is it just automatically? I don't get it.
When we jumped on, it looked like it was automatic. Like there was this thing in the top right in multiplayer until we queued up 4 friends, and then it switched off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it might be a matching thing. So if you play matching games, then it's all Fury or something.
I think so. But I really love the new content. I love the way the palace changes as the king gets more and more rotty. It's incredible with the vines creeping out and the crows in the clouds. It's so creepy and spooky. But the one thing I've found annoying so far is they've introduced a little freeze on the countdown timer for when animations are in effect, so that you don't get penalised for taking an action that entails a long animation. But what they've done to highlight the fact is they've put this little icicle freeze over the number while it's not moving, and then it cracks audibly and disappears when it starts counting down again. And that crack, especially when you're playing Fury mode, which means there's a counter just constantly on screen for some reason or another, is a bit annoying. Yeah. Just a little bit. Yeah. Enough that I'm swearing at it, just a little bit. Yeah. But in the scheme of all of the amazing things they've done, it's such a tiny thing. It's so cool. I like the leech effect when you suck a life away from another player. It just looks awesome on screen. And what was the other big one? Where you get to draw health based on how many... Is it health?
Veins are on the board.
Based on how many veins are on?
Yeah.
It looks super creepy.
Yeah, it pulls these purple strands from all over the board.
Like the escaping souls kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so spooky. So yeah, playing rock characters is great.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the palace changes are my favourite. Just actually seeing that corrupt and all the vines sort of sprouting out over the flagstones, that just looks spectacular. So I was a huge fan of that. So, yeah. Speaking of corruption and all things fun relating to that, I've been playing a bunch of Hearthstone this week with the last leg of the PvE content for the Knights of the Frozen Throne expansion. Memo, have you actually gotten into much more of this? Or are you still stuck on some of the earlier scenarios?
I'm stuck on stupid Lord Marrowbone.
Are you still fighting Marrowbone?
I can't be bothered anymore. Yeah. I don't have the cards to beat him. I just don't. I've got him down to 1 health multiple times again, and I can't. Oh, it's too frustrating. So I'm just abandoning it until I can get more cards into my pack, and then I'll figure it out.
Well, I can say that the final boss fight of that entire sort of expansion adventure sort of series is a lot fucking harder. It is ridiculous.
Oh, good.
Yeah, like when you actually come up against the Lich King himself, the challenge is first and foremost you have to beat him, and you unlock a card pack for doing that. But then if you manage to beat him with every single one of the 9 classes, then you unlock a special hero portrait of Arthas before he turned into the Lich King to replace your Paladin hero portrait. So now I was super keen on getting that because it looks really, really good. But the thing I realized very quickly is that they've actually coded this final fight completely differently for every single one of the 9 classes. So it's not the same battle because the Lich King does something really, really brutal to you in the opening sort of turns that changes the way you play completely. So, for instance, when you try and fight against him with a mage deck, he sets your life total at 1 in the second turn of the match. So you have to find a way to beat him and stay alive while at 1 health. And that is a really unique challenge, I can tell you. When you play against him with Paladin, he puts a death rattle on all of your minions that basically summons them over to his side when they die. So you're like, holy crap, anything that I put down to try and fight this guy, he's just going to summon back on his side. So how do I beat him without too many minions? And every single one of the other classes has a similar sort of challenge that actually influences the way that you build your deck to face him, because sometimes he does damage to you based on how many spells you've got in your deck at the beginning of the game or how many minions you've got in your deck and all sorts of weird stuff like that. So, but yeah, it was tough.
It wouldn't be fighting the Lich King if you didn't have to go back to the drawing board multiple times.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the canon of Warcraft, is that he is just like the ultimate.
Yeah.
I mean, Game of Thrones is a great example of what he means to that world. So
absolutely, they've done it justice. They did a really good job, and the fight itself actually has different phases too, just like a raid fight would in World of Warcraft. So the theme is spectacular. So yeah, but I succeeded. I managed to beat him with all 9 classes. It took me a few days and a lot of games. So I got my hero portrait, super happy with that, and now I'm just sort of playing El Casual to enjoy all of the new cards, basically.
Yeah.
But what
I just don't know that this expansion's for me.
Yeah, I mean, parts of it, might be, and parts of it might not be, but as with every expansion, from this point onwards, at least you'll have the PvE content as well as the new cards to play with. So, and if they keep doing it like this, I'll be quite happy. I think it's a good way to do it. But the thing I've been spending a lot of my time on this week is actually playing the new Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, which just came out before the weekend. Now, I enjoyed the shit out of Uncharted 4 when that came out last year, and I think it's pretty safe to say that if it wasn't for the absolute ridiculousness of Overwatch, that probably would have been my game of the year, because Uncharted 4 was an absolute masterpiece. Lost Legacy was originally pitched as DLC for this game. They decided to make it its own thing, and it's come out as a standalone release, so you don't actually have to have Uncharted 4 to play it. And I'm absolutely gobsmacked by how much they've managed to build in just over a year, because this thing is basically an Uncharted game on its own. It is fucking awesome. So, Jam, can recommend. you should check this one out at some point, because I know you've played some of the other Uncharted as well.
Yeah, I've got to get to it.
Yeah.
It's on the list.
You can borrow my Uncharted 4 if you want. that offer's open to you as well, Mimo, because I know you enjoy those sorts of games. If you enjoyed Tomb Raider, you'll enjoy this. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But, man...
And Laura Bailey.
Yeah, exactly. And that, honestly, is one of the highlights. So the 2 main characters in Lost Legacy are Chloe Fraser, who is one of the characters from Uncharted 2 and 3. She's kind of like kind of like an on-again, off-again relationship for Nathan Drake. And Nadine Ross, who's actually the mercenary commander who is kind of the villain in Uncharted 4. She has a bit of a redemption arc somewhat sort of towards the end of that game, but she's sort of left in a weird position where, like in Lost Legacy, she's kind of... she's not with her mercenary company anymore for various reasons, which I won't go into because they're a bit spoilery. So, but yeah, it's they're teaming up together, and of course, Chloe is voiced by Claudia Black, who sci-fi fans may recognize from Farscape and Stargate.
Yeah.
And Laura Bailey does the voicing for Nadine Ross, and Laura Bailey, of course, is Vexalia from Critical Role. Have I got that right, Mimo? That's the correct name, isn't it? Yeah, cool.
Yes.
And a bunch of other things. She does voice work across the board. But, man, the voice work for those 2 characters in this game is second to none. It is so, so good. Like, if they were to keep making Uncharted games with those two characters and not have any of the Drakes involved, I would not give a shit because they are that good. And I think that this is where the series needs to go from this point onwards, because I don't think they're done with Uncharted, just quietly. So, yeah, that's my hope anyway. But yeah, the game's great. Like, it's the price point is lower than a full AAA sort of Uncharted game. It's only 40 US, and I think it was about just under 60 Australian. So that's a little over half, but this thing is easily as good. Lengthwise, it's a little bit shorter, but not half as short. I think it's probably quite a bit more than that. And it's still got all the action set pieces. It's still got all of the puzzles. It's still got all of the great acting. It is, for all intents and purposes, an Uncharted game. So I cannot recommend it highly enough. It is such a great ride. The story is excellent. The setting is actually in India this time, so you sort of start off in the middle of a populated area of India that's sort of in the middle of a civil war, and then you sort of head out to like a mountainous area where there's a lot of lost temples and stuff like that. A lot of Indian mythology sort of getting explored, so Shiva and Ganesh and all the Indian sort of pantheon that you may have sort of heard names from over the years. Yeah, well, that's all in there. So different theme, different setting, different characters, same great Uncharted experience. So yeah, and I'm currently putting the finishing touches on a video review, which I'll aim to get up on the channel before this episode goes up as well. So if people want to actually have a look at what I'm talking about, then it should be on there. So there you go. But yeah, Uncharted, you ladies should play it. I know it's adding to the list, but you ladies should play it. It is one of those games.
Yeah, I mean, my list is 100 hours of Persona to go, so I don't know.
Yeah.
And I just found out that Witch is on super sale, so there's the pressure. There's so much pressure.
Super sale.
Yep. So,
Oh my gosh, I bought it.
so you now own Witcher 3 on 2 platforms as well, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, $25
Damn.
US for the base
But you
game
already
and
own
the
it
DLC.
on one platform.
I only know the base game on Xbox, and I don't turn my Xbox on lately, so there.
And it's been so long since you played it, you probably want to restart it anyway, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I'll have to.
Yeah.
Oh, shame.
Oh, it's just going to sit in my list for a while until I get like a big block of leave where I lock myself away from the world and you guys and play my single player games.
Oh yeah, because we're
I'm
such
using
a
my
distraction.
big block of leave to go and play a bunch of games
Yeah,
over
me too.
in Melbourne.
With you guys.
So, yeah.
Have it.
I predict that Destiny 2 is going to be big for our gaming group. A lot bigger than we
I
think
think
it will
so
be.
too.
Oh yeah, yep.
I think it's going to take over.
I'm envisaging like when I started playing WoW type scales. Like I think people are going to start getting really invested in their what are they people? They have names. Help me, Luke. You've played.
Guardians.
Jam, you've played. What are they called?
Guardians.
Guardians. Thank you.
My brain
Thanks
just
for-
went away. I need sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we haven't got long
Yeah.
to
It looks
wait
like
now.
I'll be picking that up as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome.
Are you going to pick it up on PlayStation?
Yeah. No, I'm buying it on PlayStation. My dad has leave to play the game next week, and just added me on PlayStation. So hopefully I don't get roped into playing with his clan, because that would be embarrassing for me. So, because I cannot play that game. So
You got a super cool dad. That's awesome to hear. Look, Mimo, it's one of those games that I think, even at the sort of less confident skill level, there'll be a heap of fun in there for you. So, I'm not a...
Is there cute animals?
No.
There's alien
There's
dogs.
cute robots.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Haven't played it much
At least
yet.
there was Dinklebot in the first one.
Yeah, it's not Dinklebot
That's
anymore. It's
true.
Nolanbot now, but yeah, sure.
Nolanbot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I played the demo when it was still Dinklebot.
Yep.
But yeah, maybe I can get my dad to log on and carry us through a couple of raids.
Well, that's the thing too, because it's a co-op sort of thing. There's a bit of a buffer there. When you're playing with a group of cool people that can sort of watch your back. So yeah, that helps a fair bit. Well, I'm super looking forward to that. So that's kind of the next week of stuff to sort of gun for. And Mimo, you've got your beast arriving on the weekend, so super fun times for that. It's gonna be good.
Oh my gosh, yes. We're just talking to Jam about strategy. I want to play GTA first, but I don't think I'll be able to get it downloaded within a day to play on Saturday night. So
Yeah.
We can make that a Sunday thing.
might be some sub PUBG.
Oh yeah, we got to
Maybe.
indoctrinate you in that, don't
Maybe.
we? Yeah.
That would be really
Oh
cool.
yeah, I cannot wait to play that game.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the one.
We'll get the whole party playing some PUBG on
Sorted.
Saturday. That sounds like a great plan. That'd be cool.
Yeah, and Overwatch. I want to see what Overwatch is like when it has, candles and chandeliers and, stuff.
Boxes.
Boxes. And Jamie's always like, look at this, Imogen. I'm like, I can't see what that is, Jam. I have no idea.
Well, you know what?
That's not rendered.
I couldn't tell you what
Colorist
it's like
stuff.
because I still don't know.
I'll lend you the potato, Luke. It'll be
No,
fine.
no, that's cool. I'm next on the list, okay? We've got a schedule.
Yeah. Yeah, done.
Well, Jesus, I need a computer upgrade so I can actually render video at a reasonable speed. But yeah, that will be a great help to actually play some decent games too, which would be good. Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, in the meantime, if you've listened tonight and you've enjoyed the show, please hop on and leave us a review on iTunes if that is the platform that you've used it on. If not, hop on and leave us a review anyway. That'd greatly help us out. But in the meantime, you can hit us up at all the usual places, mail@partyloaded.com. We are on Facebook. Check us out on Twitter @partyloadershow. Check out our YouTube channel. And I really want to sort of highlight that tonight. It would be great to sort of spread the word about all the content we've been working on putting up recently. So that's at youtube.com/channel endgame. And if you do have a look at the videos there, please remember to like and subscribe as well for future content. We've got a good schedule going now with several things going up every week and working pretty hard on that. So check it out for more stuff going up. But yeah, we'll be back again next week for our Party Game of the Month review. We're looking at Jotuns. That's another thing to squeeze in over the weekend before the Destiny madness hits. So yeah, looking forward to that game. It looks cool. So there we go.
Yeah.
But man, it's getting to that time of year, guys. It's getting nuts. Getting a bit crazy.
No, we might have to abandon Party Game of the Month in some of these months, but we'll
Just
see.
gonna auto roll Destiny
Yeah.
to next month.
Oh, look, it's Destiny again, guys.
Every single
Yeah.
number is Destiny 2. How did that happen? It's a mystery.
I think there is no doubt that we'll be putting some stuff together for D2. That's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, it'll be good. All right. Well, anyway, let's
D2 now, huh?
Well, people love the D.
Destiny.
Yeah, Destiny.
Oh my god, that's brilliant.
All right. Let's get some sleep. Come back fresh. Play some games. Thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see you again next week. Good night.
Bye, friends.
Bye.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.